and this is the Age Group Multisport Podcast with me, Richard Conway. This is a platform for age group multisport athletes to showcase their journeys. Welcome along to episode 58 and thank you once again for joining us. Hope you're all well and training's going well and you're going to be ticking over now for the winter time as the temperatures have definitely dropped this week that I've noticed. So yeah, hope everything's going to plan, and if you have had any races, I hope they've gone well. We're going to talk about races in a minute because there was the European Championships over there in Bilbao in Spain that many of the previous AMP guests were racing at, and also this episode's guest Simon Hall was racing at. So on episode 58 here we have Simon Hall and his journey into multisport, and he talks to us about his background as a runner and how he got into multisport and some of the issues that he's been through from a health point of view and what he's done to rectify those. So that's all coming up. So that's a pretty good journey, actually. It was really nice to meet Simon, and we'll find out, like I said, how he got on at Bilbao at the end of the episode. We also had quite a few of our previous guests racing out there last weekend, and they included Age Group News, David Pearson and Karina Kaufman. David was on episode 8 and Karina was on episode 17. And just while we're on that topic, they do a fantastic job on Instagram, sharing all the news of what's happened in the age group world. And they've also just started a Facebook page, so if you are wanting to know what's going on, other than the British Triathlon website itself, David and Karina do a fantastic job, and now it's even more accessible for people who don't go on Instagram to just nip across to Facebook and follow their page on there, and you'll find out lots of things that are going on and have been going on. Usually just roundups of races and things like that, so look them up and give them some support. Also racing was episode 28 Stuart Fisher, and episodes 49 David Brown, and Christina Dove from episode 12, and Mark Shepherd from episode 21. Jason Williams, who was on episode 56, and Dr. Megan Powell, who was on episode 13, and finally David Bagg, who was on episode 47, as well as this episode's guest Simon Hall. So well done to you guys for getting there in the first place, and also for racing. I hope you had a good race. I hope you enjoyed the whole experience. And like I say, if you want to hear and find out more, head across to the Age Group News guys and they'll fill you in. And it was a return to racing for me last weekend as I took part in the European Duathlon Sprint Qualifier over there in Darley, put together by Crazy Legs Events, who done a fantastic job. Quite a quiet event, really, in the scheme of things, as lots of competitors were away over in Spain competing in Bilbao, as we already discussed. And with it being the last qualification race of the year, that gave people the opportunity to go out there and put the tenner in and see what they can do. It's funny how it was Mrs. C's idea to go along to Darley Moor, and because this was the weekend that I was supposed to be going over to Bilbao, she said, well, let's go and race over at Darley Moor, because she wanted to try and qualify. And two of our other friends from our club, WBC, also came along, and they decided that they'd want to qualify as well for their age group. And I already had a tenner in from Clumber Park earlier on the year, which after the crash I didn't manage to race. So my tenner was already in. So that was 4 of us trying to qualify. But to be honest, on my part, I didn't really hold out much expectations. Not as fit, obviously, as I wanted to be, due to obviously the crash and various injuries, calf strains and hamstrings, and just one thing after another this year. But I thought it'd be nice just to get to the start line healthy, without any injury, and just give it a go. And that's what happened. So we rocked up on Saturday night because you could camp over. So we took the van over, and Betty came with us, and we just stopped over in the van. And we were all ready for it Sunday morning, so we didn't have to travel on the morning, which is always preferable. And the racetrack, like I said, triangular, and it was all right. It was a really nice surface. Really windy down the back straight. The ladies had it worse than us because they had rain on their race. The over 50s was in the morning, which was the category that I was in. The ladies was after us at 11:30, and then the under 50s men was in the afternoon. So the race went really well, actually. I was pleased with how I performed, especially on both legs of the run. No pulls, no strains, no injuries. I'd set myself a pace in my head that I wanted to aim for, and yeah, I did that quite comfortably. So I was just glad to get through it, to be fair, and ended up 6th in my age group. I had a bit of a torrid time in T2 off the bike. Couldn't get my helmet undone, my hands were frozen and numb. Couldn't find the clasp, and it took me, well, a good minute and some to get it undone, and by that time a few people had got in front of me, so I didn't really have the opportunity to pull it back in such a short second run. But it was nice to see one of our previous guests on the podcast, Andy Biggs, back racing, and he came in on the 4th spot, which was good to see. So he'll have an automatic qualification, because Andy's had a bit of a rough time over the last couple of years, so it's great to see him racing again. Well done, mate. Mrs. C did a fantastic job. Having just had a cast took off her wrist on Thursday, we were still umming and ahhing whether she should try and race, but she was determined as ever, and she got the job done and completed it. And our teammates Roz and Phil both did really well, and hopefully we await to see whether they've qualified or not. Fingers crossed for them, because that would be ace. All in all, great event, really enjoyed it, and definitely go back and revisit it and see, when we're really, really fit, how we can improve our times. Been watching a bit of Super League that was taking place this weekend, just gone. And they were over in Malibu in the States. So it was a sea swim, which is always quite fascinating, because the waves bring them back in, and some of them get a better ride on the waves than others, and it can make a massive difference. And it did in the ladies. Taylor Spivey, after Georgia Taylor-Brown was in the lead, on one of the bike legs she crashed, and she was going a bit too hot into one of the corners, which was all sandy, and yeah, she ended up on the floor. So she ended up 40 seconds behind, and she never really caught up, and it was nice to see actually the local girl Taylor Spivey get the win. And the same fate befell Matty Hauser, who was in the lead of the men's race, and again, same corner, same thing happened to him. He went down, and he actually didn't manage to hit the time cut, so he got pulled out, unfortunately for him. And Hayden Wild ended up winning the whole thing, and he's gone back to the top of the leaderboard. So yeah, good for Hayden, not so much for Matty Hauser, but there's still a few more races to come, so it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. And also been watching the Cycling World Championships, which have started, and they're over there in Australia, and they had the women's and the men's TT on Sunday, and I'm not sure what else is on there other than the road races as well. I don't know whether there's any indoor cycling going on there. I haven't looked into that, but they're always worth a watch, so I'll be following that. Finished the Lawrence Okoli book, really enjoyed it, and if you remember from the last episode, he was the young man who was inspired by Anthony Joshua's success in the Olympics in 2012, where he won a gold medal, and at the time Lawrence was flipping burgers in McDonald's, and yeah, he changed his life around. He managed to get to the Olympics 4 years later in Beijing, and then he became the world cruiserweight champion. So yeah, really inspirational story, and he had lots of good points to make, and yeah, so it's worth a read. Quite inspirational. Been listening to podcasts as usual while I've been working, and a couple of podcasts I've listened to, and one of those was Triathlon Mockery again, which is brought to you by Joe Skipper and his sidekick Tom. Can't pronounce his surname because I think he's Dutch. So anyway, but Joe was talking about his victory at Ironman Wales, and I didn't realise because I really didn't follow it very much. But he'd had a chain malfunction on his bike, and he was telling us that he had to stay at the side of the road for 20 minutes while they got it sorted. They literally had to take his chain off and put it back on again. And he still went on to win, so that shows he's in good form for Kona, which is going to be happening in a few weeks. So good luck with that one, Joe. Just go out and smash it. Some sad news for the Brownlee brothers as well, that was put on social media over the last few days. Johnny couldn't race at the weekend because he'd gone over to Malibu but picked up a virus, so he'd been in bed for about 3 days, so he was watching from the sidelines. And Alistair's ended up with a stress fracture again, so he's out of action. I think he was supposed to be racing at the PTO Championships, so that's not going to happen either. So get well soon, guys. And one of the other podcasts that I was listening to is the Catalyst Health and Wellness and Performance Coaching podcast. Bit of a mouthful, and it's all about health and wellness, as the title says. And on this episode, they had Professor Jay Maddock on, and he was just discussing why being outside and spending time in nature is important on well-being. Fascinating podcast. The theory behind being out in nature, or even just having plants in the home, can just uplift our wellness and improve our well-being. Give that a listen if you can. Again, it's the Catalyst Health and Wellness and Performance Coaching podcast. It's pretty good all round, actually. There's some really good episodes on there for lifestyle and health. There's just a couple that I've been listening to over the last couple of weeks. And I think that's about it for now. That's enough of me waffling on. It's time to go to the main event, which is Simon Hall. I hope you enjoy Simon's story. Really nice guy. And we'll see you on the other side.
Hi there.
Hey, Simon.
You well?
I'm all right, yeah. Not too bad, actually. Can't complain. Yeah. You?
Yeah, good. Yeah, back at work this week, so I've had a couple of weeks off.
Oh, nice.
So,
been on holiday?
I had a couple of weeks. I spent a week down at the Cotswolds. So I had a week there and then a week at home. So it was good. Yeah, it's nice having 2 weeks off work.
Yeah.
It's you get a real respite, and a week I can't switch off. Switch off in a week. So a couple of weeks is always good.
Well, thank you once again for coming on to AMP and agreeing to share your story. Much appreciated. Just if you would like to just tell us a little bit about your background growing up as a kid and what you were into, and basically how you got into multisport, really.
Yeah, I suppose so. Background, I suppose I was like most kids, enjoyed a lot of sport when I was a young lad. So I think my family as well was a very outdoor family. So even from prior to going to school, I think my dad was a police officer, and back in the day we only had one car, and we'd go down and meet him in town after work. So from when I was 2 or 3, my mum was pushing my little brother in the pushchair, and I was walking 2 or 3 miles in the week to go. And so I think naturally always had that sort of outside, being in the sort of doing some form of physical activity. But I think when I was at primary school, I used to do a lot of sprinting, as you do, sort of sports day and things like that. And I was pretty good at sprinting and that when I was young. Then as I sort of got a little bit older, especially sort of coming to the end of sort of primary school, started doing a bit of cross country. I think my teacher at the time, Mr. Caffrey, I think his name was, didn't think I'd be much of a long distance runner, but fortunately, I did a few cross countries with the schools and just naturally sort of started to do some of that, as well as playing things like football, riding my bike and things like that when I was a kid. Obviously, I think a lot of young lads when they're that age, they're down over the local field kicking a football round. But I was okay at football, but it wasn't really my sort of real interest or passion. But when I went to sort of junior school, I did a few sort of more bit of running and cross country, and entered a couple of the local schools races. Unfortunately, I was pretty good from an early age. I think naturally quite a skinny guy, so I think that helps when you're a runner. And just naturally sort of fell into doing a bit of cross country. And I think when I was about 11 or 12, I was already at sort of clubs and doing scouts. And I sort of said to my parents, that my school teachers had said, "Oh, I've got a bit of a pretty good runner." It was actually I think it was a geography teacher and a maths teacher who had a sort of out of schools cross country club, which I went to, and they sort of convinced me to join the local club. So I sort of went back to my parents and said, "Can I join the local athletics club?" "Well, you need to give up either your scouts or something. We can't do everything." And at the time, they just spent a lot of money on my new scouts outfit and stuff. But so I went down to my local club, Tamworth, which is where I was sort of born and brought up, and joined there when I was about 12. And just, started running there from when I was 12 all the way up to when I was sort of 22, 23, really. And I used to go there on a Tuesday and Thursday night to begin with, racing at weekends. My family, I suppose, my mum and dad weren't really runners, but my dad was dropping me off there every week, and he decided to join the club. Wasn't long after then my mum decided to join the club. My brother decided to join the club. So all 4 of us were
fantastic
at the local athletics club. My brother sort of did more of the sort of shot put and throws and things like that as he got a bit older. My mum and dad, I think my mum's done about 8 London marathons. My dad did about 12 or 13 marathons. Especially my mum was not a naturally gifted runner, but she joined the club. She couldn't run around the block, and within 4 weeks she was doing a half marathon and so forth. So I think they got a lot out of going, just not from a competitive point of view, but from a social point of view and just health and well-being, I suppose. So it was quite a family affair, really. And I was at that club for quite a few years, doing lots of different races, from sort of 800 meters when I first started. I think I won a county championships when I was under 13, and then running all the way up to under 20, running sort of for the Midlands and having sort of Midland medals and things like that, but never quite making the international level. It's very similar to football, where you get to a certain level, but to that jump, people don't realise, to get to any sort of international competitive level can be pretty difficult. So I was always a really good sort of county runner, pretty good Midlands runner, but never quite made those national teams when I was sort of working through those younger years, but really enjoyed it. I think you get a lot from I think as well, when you're young, I think joining a club like that and being around different, at that time, different age groups, different people as well from different schools. I think it was actually quite good for my sort of just general life skills and things like that, because I think you can be quite within a school. You've got your certain friends and your certain, but actually joining something like an athletics club, and I had luckily had friends from other clubs as well there. So local clubs like Cannock Chase and things like that. I've got friends that I've probably known since I was 12 or 13, not as a go down the pub in, but just still now stay in touch with on Facebook or Strava or seeing what they're doing running wise. It's quite, really, really good to be involved in sort of.
Well, it's a way of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, once you've been involved in that sort of thing, it's, even if you leave it for a period of time, you always get back to it. There's always, it's always there, isn't it? It's like a family in a sense.
Yeah, and I think as well, my club, Tamworth, was a very small club. We didn't have a lot of money. I think we had when I started, had a cinder track. It was one of the few remaining cinder tracks before I think they got a lottery fund to get sort of an updated sort of tartan track, and that was a big deal when they got that. And they had a sort of clubhouse built as well. When I started there, the clubhouse was literally some little tin sheds that you just went into, and it was very Billy basic sort of club, but I really enjoyed it when I was there. And had a few coaches when I was there. My final coach, John Graves, actually went on to work for England Athletics. I think he was the chair of England Athletics or something eventually. But he was I think he was a geography maths teacher, so very analytical, had all our structured programs and everything. He'd give us a A4 sheet of paper for the month with what we need to do on which days, and had all our sessions outlined. So, and lucky to be able to run with people that were a bit older than me as well, which I think multi-sports always say, don't they? Run with runners, cycle with cyclists.
Yeah, that's it.
But I think when you're young as well, if you're running with people that are often adults as well, when you're sort of 16, 17 and start running with 25 to 30-year-old men, it sort of really brings you on. So, so I was there from about 12 till I was about 22 or something like that. And then I moved over to run for Birchfield Harriers, which is probably one of the biggest clubs in the country. So I went there just mainly because I was doing a lot of steeplechase running, which is the one over the barriers and through the water.
Always good to watch.
Yeah, so
looks like one of the hardest races out there, actually.
Yeah, it's luckily for me, I think I was pretty good on flat speed, but the reason I think I was pretty good over the steeplechase is I spent a lot of time with my hurdle technique. So my differentiation between the flat and the hurdles was probably a lot better than some people. So
does make a lot of difference, doesn't it? When you watch them on the TV, the people who might not be the fastest, but they get over the hurdles, that makes a massive difference of how they then go on to the next bit of flat, and the amount of space they can have between another athlete who's flailing about trying to get over.
And I spent a lot of time learning to sort of lead off both legs, so I could hurdle left and right leg lead. So it meant I didn't need to chop speed down and stuff like that. So my differentiation between my steeple to the flat 3K was sort of like 20 seconds, where they would normally work on a 40-second to 45-second sort of differentiation. So for me, I was always and it was something a little bit different as well. So, but I wasn't getting the competition at my club level. So moving to Birchfield meant I could run in there, the sort of like what they call the Premier League, which is the national division one of, I think there's about 4 divisions in the national, and then you have the regional division. So they were sort of top flight. So
who were the famous faces at Birchfield as you were there then that you'd come across? Yeah,
so we had when I was there,
it's a massive, like you said, it's a massive, well-known club, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there was the heptathlete, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head, that one of the last ladies to win she won an Olympic medal, and I'm trying to think of her name. Not Denise Lewis or anyone like that, but there was another lady, and I can't remember her name now. But yeah, I mean, on the league level that I was running at, there probably wasn't some of the top type like Mark Lewis Francis would have been in and around that sort of time, but he wouldn't come and run some of the league races. But they had a lot of sort of Kenyan athletes that they would bring over as well. I think that used to frustrate some of the other clubs. But so for me, I could run with not top flight Kenyans, but even their run of the mill Kenyan was still good trouncing and training. So there was.
That's great exposure, though, isn't it? You know, I mean, people might not like that, but you know, things have moved on so much these days. But I think like bringing you on and seeing how they actually just effortlessly run, and
we had
quite amazing, really.
Yeah, we had I think it was one year we won, or we got into the road. They do road relays every year. They have the Midlands and the Nationals, and they're at Sutton Park, which is on the running scene's one of the biggest sort of club events that you can have. And on the Nationals, we had one of the Kenyans on the first leg, and I was on the second leg, and he come in with quite a big lead over quite some really good runners. And I hated it, to be fair, because I was on the second leg knowing that I was probably out of my league a little bit, and I didn't run a bad time, but I must have had 10 or so people just come flying past me on the second leg and the problem was you were there just to be shot at, and everybody knew that on the previous leg we were in the lead and then it just on the second leg. But I think it was but on the flip side of that, I think we'd won the Midlands 12 stage, which I was a part of, and I think I was on leg 9 or 10, and running behind a lead motorbike for 3 mile with everyone cheering you, and you're sort of in Sutton Park, which is I suppose very local to Birchfield. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, that's quite nice to have that
memories.
Feel like you're sort of a professional in a way behind a lead bike is quite nice. You don't get that very often. So but that was sort of my main sort of my whole background was really running and steeplechase, but everything from 800 through to 1500s, 3Ks, and so forth. And then outside of that, I was just a kid that liked cycling and mountain biking and stuff like that. But that was more of a hobby outside of my running. Yeah.
And then I read in your bio that you sent through that you actually got to do a triathlon.
Yeah, so I think I was still running for Birchfield at the time, but as you go into sort of work life, you sometimes come across events and things that your business is doing. And luckily, the company I was with, we shared an office with another business, and they wanted to do a sort of a sprint triathlon. I think it was the construction triathlon, something or other. I can't remember who it was sponsored by at the time. And they said, "Oh, do you fancy having a crack at this?" And I could run. I've cycled when I was a kid. I spent a lot of time when I was on holiday as a kid, bodyboarding and surfing. So I was quite comfortable with open water in that sense, although I hadn't done a lot of swimming. And I sort of had a couple of months of just going down a swimming pool, riding. I think at the time I had my dad's an old rally bike that I bought some cheap sort of SPD pedals for it for like 20 quid. It was the shifters were on the down tube, and just trained on that for a few weeks, which was fun. But luckily I've got a cousin who's a really good mountain bike rider. He used to have a sponsorship deal with Rally and stuff when he was a kid, and went to the World Cyclocross Champs as a junior. So he said, "Oh, I've got an old Winter Dolan bike. Do you want to borrow that for the race?" So luckily for race day, I had a semi-reasonable bike. So I just did that, really enjoyed it. I did all right. I think I was 12th or 13th on the day. I don't think it was anything, there was anyone there that was really, really world class, or even from an age group level. But I had a pretty good run. I think I was second on the run or something, and the bike was pretty good. The swim was okay. I think I can't remember what time I did in the end. It was about an hour 12 or something like that, possibly for the sprint distance. But yeah, so after that, I sort of did that, and then thought, oh, I quite enjoyed it. And then I think bought myself a road bike, and then just did a few duathlons and stuff after that. I suppose that's how I sort of started into that sort of multi-sport.
Yeah. Had you heard about duathlons before that then? And somebody said, oh, there's this thing that the triathletes do in the wintertime. It's called a duathlon.
Yeah, I don't think I hadn't really sort of really knew about it, really. I think when I was a very young lad, I sort of watched Trans World Sports and saw the Ironman races and things like that. And yeah, I don't think I was too. I think probably what happened from memories a little while ago now is that I probably started buying a few sort of triathlon magazines and saw a couple of duathlon sort of articles, and then thought, yeah, I'll have a crack and do one. I just found a local race, and it suits me because I think coming from a running background, my swimming's probably the weakest link, and my bike was I'm used to cycle a lot when I was a kid, so I wasn't a bad cycler. I wasn't a uber cyclist, but I could hold my own to a certain extent. And yeah, so the duathlons sort of lended themselves. So I did a couple of sprint duathlons. I think the first one I did, I think I was actually second. It was only a small sort of race, but yeah, I think when you're at the pointy end, even on a smaller race, it gets you quite excited to do some more.
Absolutely,
and
get a bit more. Gets you. You get the bug then, don't you? Because you taste a little bit of success and you think, oh, I could do something with this.
Yeah, so I just really enjoy, and I think as well, being a runner, it's quite nice because you can get to the run at the front, get a bit of gap over maybe some of the better cyclists. But yeah, I think the first few I found, I always found a lot of the cyclists would just be just coming past me, which wasn't good. But yeah, I did a couple of local races, really. Nothing on the GB level. I think I maybe did my first duathlon, so 2004, 2005. Did a few of those, and then unfortunately my dad passed away when I was 28, and I sort of made a decision after that to do an Ironman. So before I started doing the age group duathlons, I'd done an Ironman in sort of I suppose after my dad passed away, just as something to get myself into. So I sort of did a few small duathlons. I did a sprint triathlon. I think I did a half triathlon, and then I did an Ironman. So I did 3 triathlons basically, from a sprint to a half to a full within not many years, which is probably, I don't know whether it was a good thing or bad thing, but
yeah, I think there's no right, no wrong, is there? You do what you do, and if you're capable of doing it and you put the training in like you obviously were and did, then it doesn't matter, does it really?
No. So they're eye-openers. They are the Ironman races. I think you don't realise how much you can train as well. And I think off the back of that, you realise that even though I thought I was probably training hard through a lot of my athletics, I probably wasn't training as much as I think I probably could have. So I think those sorts of things put a bit of perspective into how far you can actually push your body. And so I think that was 2009. I sort of did my Ironman, and then in and around that, I was still doing sort of duathlon races and things like that as well.
So what do you prefer?
I really enjoy the duathlons. I think because I'm a bit more competitive over them. I haven't done any triathlons for a few years, to be fair. So it'd be interesting to see perhaps how I might go over a sort of triathlon distance again. But I think I really enjoy the training for the Ironman. It is actually quite nice in a sadistic sort of way, going out sort of 4 or 5 hours on your bike with a couple of mates on a Saturdays. I think that training is actually really, really nice. And I think swimming, I quite enjoy swimming, although I'm not brilliant at it. It's sort of like cycling's great, but running, you feel a bit more in contact with the environment a bit more, and you can run. And then swimming, you're actually immersed in the environment, which is slightly different.
I've never thought of it like that, but yeah,
slightly different again. And
it is.
Yeah, when you're swimming along and you go to breathe, and there's a couple of ducks swimming past you, or so I think in reality, I suppose I do sort of prefer the duathlons from a competitive point of view, because I think I get it meets my strengths. But from a training point of view, I used to really enjoy going down to a lake we used to do a lake session Saturday morning, and then we'd go out for sort of 4 or 5 hours on the bike afterwards, which was just really good fun, to be fair. Hard work, but good fun. But competitive wise, the duathlons probably where I get better results, which is always nice.
Yeah, that's always the pull, isn't it? So how did you find out about age group then?
So I think I got to a point where I was racing a few races, and then I just thought one year, I thought, right, I think I read a couple of articles on it, saw a few things, and I think I'd entered, saw Clumber Park one year. I think it was 2016. So I came to that quite late. So I was about 36, I think, when I came to sort of doing those. And I said, I'd just give myself a bit of a target and said, I'd be interesting to have a crack at one of these age group races and see if I can qualify for a GB vest, because I thought I hadn't done it through my running. It's an opportunity here, and I'll just have a bit of a crack, and didn't expect too much really. So I just entered. I think it was Clumber Park. It was an autumn. No, I think it was probably one of the around sort of February, March. I think they do one around February, March.
They're usually in March, aren't the qualifiers?
Yeah. So I entered. Yeah, so I entered that. I missed the qualifying spot. I think I got outkicked by somebody for the final sort of third spot or whatever it was, but managed to get a rollback place. So
cool.
I went to Avils in 2016 for my first Worlds, which was petrifying. And I don't know how other people, and maybe other people on your podcast have found it, but I think even though I'd run a lot, I think I was so nervous going into that race, just excited, nervous, just the whole wearing your GB suit, doing all the sort of the course recce, having the sort of like, I think at the time they had GB teams are huge, aren't they? So you have a 300 odd team, you're all sitting in a room taking the race briefing. Yeah, so it was I really enjoyed it, but really nervous on the first sort of race that I did, and I think I was 33rd overall. No, 33rd in my age group.
Yeah,
and but really enjoyed it. So even in an age group level, when you put a GB vest on, I think it's you can be so proud that you've got this sort of your country's colours and things like that. So yes, that was the first one I did, and I think it was just I fell into it really. I saw some races and thought I'll have a crack at it, and I think for me, the amount of friends and people that you meet through that, I've got friends all over the country now that you talk to, and that I've actually got probably friends that I don't meet in the UK and only meet on trips. There's quite a few people that I think. I think you had Ross on one of your earlier podcasts, I think. And I don't speak to him much other than I met him through. I think he raced at Finn in Denmark. So and there's numerous other amounts of people that I've met through that you just don't see in the UK very much.
It's such unless you're at qualifying races, but it is such a community, isn't it? That you're always bumping into faces if you're at the qualifiers, especially in your own age group and things as well. Yeah,
I think it's just, and I think even on social media, I think it's so many conversations, so many but it's such a really good atmosphere, really good team spirit, and it's so I did the first one, and from there on I've always sort of whether it's a European or a Worlds, just tried to qualify. And so to 2016 17, I think the first one I did was in Spain in Avils, second year, I think there was a Europeans in Soroya, I think it is. I can't
yeah.
So that was
2017.
Really good. Really windy that day.
I was there. Yeah,
I didn't
nearly got blown off my bike.
Yeah, luckily I only had deep dish wheels that day, but that was a really windy. I think I was 10th on that day, so it was like suddenly gone from 33rd in the world to 10th in Europe, and then we went out to Canada that year to Penticton.
Yeah,
and that was just fantastic. That was just the most amazing experience. And I think I was 12th that year, so yeah, it was already a good sort of progression. But I always find in Spain you get a lot of Spanish in Spain, but they don't travel. So
no, it's weird, isn't it? Weird, because I mean, it's quite a big sport over there, as you say, and they're always well represented when it's in Spain. But you know, they don't travel that far at all, even in Europe, and you hardly ever see them in the Worlds.
Yeah, it's really, really strange. So, but yeah, I think going to Canada was just amazing. It was, again, probably a country I wouldn't have said I'm going to go there on holiday, but because there was a race there, it was really nice just to go out and explore. And but yeah, since I think after that, I think the year after that was Denmark. And then we sort of got into more of the COVID season then stuff. So, but I had a good 2 or 3 years. I think I was 12th, and then I think the following year I was 14th in Denmark as well. So quite good results, but nothing amazing, but pretty consistent good results.
Well, you say nothing amazing, but I think it's amazing just to actually get there and actually race, and then I think it is amazing, regardless of where you place, just to be able to have competed for your country, really.
Yeah, and I think, but I think the bike leg and stuff like that was a real. I just lose a chunk of time on that.
Yeah.
Not a bad runner, but bike leg was always a little bit my chink in the armour through those, especially through the first few years that I was doing those races.
But you're putting that right.
Yeah, so I think I've turned 40 a couple of years ago, and I think what I decided to do when I turned 40, there was a couple of things. When I was in Canada, I got diagnosed with colitis, which is like a irritable bowel syndrome. It's sort of linked to a bit of Crohn's. So without going into too much of the detail, it's not pleasant at times when it's flared up. So,
and now, do you had any symptoms of this before, or did it just suddenly appear?
I had a little bit of something a few years before, but it wasn't. There was no sort of real diagnosis of it or anything, and it cleared up. So, but from sort of 2017 onwards, for about 2 or 3 years, I had a real spate of sort of colitis, which makes it very difficult when you're training. You're losing a lot. You can lose quite a bit of blood from it. You can't. Controlling your bowels can be quite difficult at times. So, training wise, you can imagine when you're running out and about and you suddenly need the toilet, for example, things like that. So from a training perspective, it's not so bad in the winter when you're running through fields in the middle of nowhere, but if you're going abroad and running through cities, it's so just that becomes very just stressful on your life. And
what do they put that down to, Simon?
There's no diagnosis for it, so they don't know what causes it. So when I turned 40, I'd sort of made a few decisions about just trying to change some stuff up. I think I've turned vegetarian.
Which is like, I noticed that, and that we'll have a chat about that because that's quite interesting. Yeah.
So that made a big difference. Just tried to bit of work-life balance, trying to not work so many hours and things like that. Just try and just ease that back a little bit. So, but then tried a whole range of things from acupuncture. So saw an acupuncturist just to try and help sort of with that as well. So I think that sort of helped. But there was a few things I think that I changed just as I turned sort of 40 that whether that was, I don't think I necessarily made decisions for that purpose, but those lifestyle changes have made an impact. And I think the last 2 years, I haven't had a spate of colitis whatsoever. And I think some of it's about reducing stress load. Some of it's probably dietary, and just that sort of sleeping patterns, and just a few things that probably, touch wood,
absolutely,
haven't had any sort of spates from it for a few years. So,
well, I mean, what you've just mentioned there, you mentioned your diet, you mentioned stress, you mentioned sleep. Those are like pinnacle pillars of well-being, aren't they, and health.
Yeah.
And I think when you live in a busy life and working hard, they all go by the wayside, don't they? Yeah, you exercise and you eat to fuel, but lots of us don't think about what we're eating, do we? And it just goes back to, so how have you found the vegetarian diet then? And how has that, one, affected your situation, and two, how has it affected how you exercise and your performances?
So, in terms of, since I made some changes when I was 40, the last 2 years, my performance levels have completely changed. So if you take Clumber Park, for example, I think I was about 8 minutes quicker now over that course than what I was when I was 36. 5 of those minutes are on the bike leg. So dietary wise, I'm vegetarian, and I'm pretty much plant-based on a lot of things, not everything. And that is, I suppose some of it is, we've got some pet chickens. So since I've had chickens, that sort of turned me off meat as well a little bit. So some of it's a bit of dietary for just, for that reason. But some of it's also just for me, having little sort of chickens in the garden makes you realise that they've got a little personality. And I didn't.
I've kept chickens myself, and you are so right. There's a pecking. They say about pecking order. There is a pecking order when you've got chickens, isn't there? You just. I used to sit and watch them. I haven't got any anymore, but I used to sit and take a cup of tea down the bottom of the garden and just sit and watch them for hours.
So I was a massive sort of steak eater, beef eater, mince eater, all those stuff, which are actually very difficult to digest, and so they're actually quite slow in terms of through the digestive system as well. So I eat a lot of corn sort of stuff now, and sort of things like that, which is actually probably better than the cheap meat that I was probably buying. So so completely, the diet I think has made a massive improvement. Stopped eating a lot of snack food in the evenings, so rather than having a sponge pudding and custard after my workouts and after my meal for a dessert, I'd have a bowl of cereal instead, or just some sort of simple things like that. So, and then my milk, I don't have dairy milk, plant-based milk with my tea, with my coffee, or I don't drink coffee. So don't drink much caffeine now, because that was also an irritable for my colitis. So decaf tea, don't drink coffee. All my milk's sort of plant-based.
Is it whole milk you drink,
or soya milk, or anything like that? One thing I've struggled with, I love rice pudding, so I had to try and find a vegan-based recipe that works for me. So,
but they're out there, isn't it amazing? Because we're not vegetarian, but we don't eat meat. We still eat a little bit of fish. Yeah. But it's amazing what you can like swap in and out for. Things like that. It's quite incredible. My wife made some, unbeknownst to me, she ordered this waffle maker one night, and it came the next morning, and she come up with this vegan waffle, because we've got both my kids are either vegan or vegetarian, and their partners are as well. And they came home at the weekend, and she come up with this vegan recipe for waffles, and it was incredible. So you can just find all these different recipes, and white sauce. We use cashew nuts soaked in milk, and it's like, who knew? And it's really, really good for you and really tasty.
Yeah, and then there's some little things as well. I've got a strength and conditioning coach now, and he said, like, give me some recommendations about certain seeds to have, like, for example, chia seeds. Yeah. He said, put them in your porridge, put them in your omelettes, or things seeds. Like that. And they just give you a lot more sort of nutrients and energy, and it's a quick win. So, but I sort of the last couple of years, that diet seems to have really helped in terms of both my colitis, energy levels, injuries as well. I was really suffering with calf injuries for from sort of 2016 to 2017. Before a lot of my major races, I was always getting niggles with my calves. I had quite a few injuries with just not really bad stuff, but pulling a calf and not being able to run for a little while. So touch wood, I think diets and stuff like that has also helped towards just that. I suppose it's better fuel in your body, isn't it, at the end of the day? So
absolutely. And it helps with the inflammation, which is exactly what you had.
Yeah,
because that's where all these problems come from, isn't it? It's inflammation of certain things. So just moving on then to your strength training, because I noticed you've mentioned it, and you'd put it down in your bio. So what got you onto that, and what have you been doing, and what sort of exercises do you use? Because it's one of the sort of like weaknesses as multi-sport athletes that we shy away from, saying we haven't really got time for it, even though we all know that it's really important, especially as you're getting older. So how's that come about?
Again, I think a lot of injuries I was having, and there's a guy that I know called Simon King who does sort of strength and conditioning, and I reached out to him and said, look, I'm having a lot of injuries, got a lot of niggles. I'm getting a bit older. I think I need to sort some stuff out here and get myself working on my sort of strength and just general sort of conditioning, really. And I went in for a chat, had a look at what goals, what I wanted to achieve, and just sat down with him, really. And so I have a weekly session now, just an hour a week, virtual. I sort of started just before lockdown, and we'd go and have a physical one-to-one, but during lockdown. So we do a session an hour a week, really. And that can be anything from sort of kettlebell sort of exercises, so high pulls, or a whole range of things with the kettlebells, and then to just general sort of bounding and hopping and just a whole variety of exercises, really. But it's took me a while to build up to starting with like a little 2 kilogram sort of soft thing to now a sort of 16 kilogram dumbbell with sort of doing swings through your legs and high pulls and all sorts. So we do a range of sort of a block of those, and then do things sort of more body weight sort of exercises from your sort of strength, I suppose core stability work, whether that's sort of I'm trying to think, just planks and that sort of exercises, to sort of hopping on the spot, or a whole broad range of things, really. And I think for me personally, if I don't have somebody like a coach to do that, I think I'd probably not do it.
As most of us would,
So just having that session every Friday, 1 till 2, switch off from work, go and do that, get the kettlebell out. And then we do things like in the garden as well, sort of like standing long jumps, or just a whole variety of things, really. And I sort of, in a way, I sort of just entrust. He just tells me what to do. Yeah. I just trust him to do the work. Yeah. Don't really register really what we're doing every week. And in some ways, I just know that it gets me in a good shape. It gets me stronger. Like I said, the weights that I'm doing now are pretty good. They're a lot of sort of work on the sort of thighs and my quads and all of that sort of stuff, and haven't been having as many injuries. And that's just really helped me progress, especially on the bike as well. I think it enables me to, when I had some positional work done, I can get better positions on the bike. I can hold that position stronger and for longer. I can get into more of an aero position because my core strength's there. So whenever I go and have a bike fit, it's like, right, can you get into what strength and conditioning? Yeah, no worries. Just tell me where you want me, and I'll build the strength to get to the position that I need to get to. So it just made a massive difference to my bike performance, injury performance. My run times are improving than probably what they were the last 2 years. They've improved 40 seconds over 5K, and I'm getting older. So that's amazing. Not running as quick as I was when I was sort of 24, 25, but the progression from when I was 35 to what I'm running now, I'm probably running as quick, if not quicker, than I was when I was 35. And my bike times are just far superior than they were, but dietary and the strength and conditioning work, and also luckily my strength and conditioning coach is also an ex-athlete, so he does all my run program for me as well.
Okay.
So he does a whole periodic, can't pronounce that, training regime for me. So we work on a plan to, like, we got the Europeans next week, so he'll have done a whole session and training, gearing me up ready for that. So like I said, my run times are improving as well, so
cool,
made a huge difference.
Great. Just while you've mentioned that, it's Bilbao, isn't it, in next weekend? How are you feeling, and how's training gone for it?
Touch wood, yeah, really good. I think last year I had a real sort of breakthrough. I was 4th at the Worlds last year for my age. So I was absolutely chuffed with that. It was one of those where I couldn't have got much more out of me. So I think going into the Europeans, I'm really looking forward to it. I've had a good season so far. I've got some good PBs over the bike and run a good 5K a few weeks ago. So, I mean, as good a shape as I can be, I think. Just good. It depends what everyone else does on the day, but I mean,
all you can do is your best. All you can do is control the controllables and forget about anything else.
And it's a good hilly course as well.
Yeah, you like a hill.
Here, so that's going to be challenging and a little bit different from a lot of the duathlon courses. I think the Worlds last year, there was a good incline on that, but I think it's even better on this one. I think there's a good 5K climb, I think, from what I gather, with a couple of 16% sections in it from what I've heard. So I think it's about 5% over the 5K, I believe, and then with a couple of little kickers in it somewhere. So that's quite different to a lot of your flat, fast, dual carriageway type events. Not so much in the UK, because I think our duathlon courses are a bit more rolling when they're on the roads.
So a lot of them are moving to tracks now, aren't they? So
which I think is a good thing. I think it can be a little bit dangerous kind of on some of those courses in Sunday mornings when you've got,
especially if they're not closed down.
I think Alton Park and some of them other courses are great. Goodwood have got some on as well, haven't they? Race Rapid, Race Rapid were doing some as well at Mallory, which unfortunately looks like might not be happening anymore, which is a shame. I know Rob quite well from I met him in one of the Team GB.
All right.
So I remember talking to him before he set up Race Rapid, and so that's a shame really to see that that might not be there anymore. But those closed race circuits, really good.
Yeah, cool. So I noticed also, we'll just run through this one quickly. You mentioned about your 1660.
Yeah.
Just want to explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, when I turned 40, I wanted to give myself a couple of challenges really. So the first one I did was I think 1660 at the time, which was I wanted to try and run close to a 16-minute 10K and break 60 minutes for a 25-mile TT. So it was a bit of a opportunity for me to just give myself some targets to race to or train towards to hopefully improve my duathlon. So every year since then, I've been giving myself these little targets. I think the 1660 I managed to, in the end, I think that year I broke 60. I think I did a 57.54, which I was like super chuffed with. The 5K was a little bit out of reach, and I think that year I only did a sort of 16.54 or something. I had a couple of injuries through the summer, but and then the year after I did another one, and then this year I've done a 16.20, which is again trying to get close to that 16-minute 5K, but also try and get a bit closer to 20 minutes for a 10-mile TT. But they've been really good in terms of just giving me a bit of focus.
I think it's a great idea. I saw it and I thought that's brilliant. Really is something to focus on.
I fell into a trap a few years ago doing the Clumber Park race, not really racing much then throughout the year, and then just going to the competitions. And I think found recently that I needed some races to get race fit, and doing the sort of the races like that were really good for me. I've joined a local cycling club, I've joined Western Tempo as well in terms of running clubs. So just trying to get cross-country races and other races in and train with better people and race with better people. And that project 1660, as it was then, was a really good way for me to have something to drive towards and channel my efforts towards. But yeah, I think lots of people have targets they want to hit for the year and things like that. But for me, it was just like, put it out there, put it on my social.
No, I thought it was a really cool thing to do. So fascinating background story, ups and downs in it, as we all have. We've got a few quick fire round questions now. And the first one is, what's your favourite bit of kit?
Yeah, I heard this on a couple of other ones, and I mean, a lot of people talk about their bikes and things and all those sorts of things. I think for me, a piece of kit that I bought was my watch. I think it's as simple as, at the time I was like, do I want to spend a lot of money on a watch? But actually my watch has been something that I've used now for 3 or 4 years, little Garmin triathlon watch, and just enables you to get all the information, heart rate overnight when you're sleeping. I can register all my training sessions to it. So I think that's probably a piece of kit that isn't a big piece of kit, but it's one of my favorite pieces of kit because I think it's just there with you. I wear it all of the time, and it just gives you so much data, insight, enables you to track all your training and things like that. So it's quite a good piece of kit that outside of some of the more luxurious bike stuff and those sorts of things, but I think it is something that gives you a lot of insight, especially if you've got especially with this Garmin, if you're wearing the heart rate band as well, it'll tell you stride length if you're overcompensating on the left or the right, so you can get quite a lot of data from them, which is really it can be really insightful, not just for me but also for my coach, who's then testing my stress scores through training peaks and things like that. It's just a way to really monitor and understand your how you're going. It's always nice. It's always nice when you start your run and it goes up to performance good or performance excellent, which is always nice.
I mean, I started off with the old 910 Garmin, and then that just gave up the ghost, and then I bought a second-hand one off eBay, same 910, and then I just splashed out and got the 945, and it's just wow. It just blows your mind what it can do, and all the, like you've just said about the data and sleep, and it's great.
I mean, now that my coach who put my stuff on Training Peaks, it'll link to this, and I haven't got to worry about how many reps I'm doing, what I'm doing. It's just like you press go, and it's like you got 10 1-minute reps, and it will just calculate it all for you, and you can just switch off and concentrate on the sessions. And so it's a good piece of kit.
Good, excellent. So what resources do you? Obviously, you've got your coach and you've got your running coach and your strength condition coach. What other resources do you rely on for your training?
I've got a cycle program that I use, and it's a ex-Olympic cyclist rower, Rebecca, and I can't remember her surname now. So I bought that off Training Peaks for about 20-30 quid. It's a 20-week program. Been following it now for the last 2 years. 40k time trial program. Rebecca Romero.
All right, I've heard of it.
And it's a program that I bought off Training Peaks. It's about 30 quid, I think it was, and absolutely fabulous. I follow it religiously now, and been using it for the last couple of years, and it's just helped to really transform my sort of cycling. So resource wise, that's been fantastic. And then outside of that, just read a few books. Dan Bingham, his latest book on reverse engineering, really good read.
I listened to him on a podcast. Fascinating bloke, great cyclist, just broke the hour record, hasn't he? Fascinating.
He owns a watch shop as well.
That's right,
But he's got a book about reverse engineering, which is really interesting. So I'll just read it. I'll read a bit. But a lot of it, is reliant on my sort of strength and conditioning coach in terms of my running and that. And then at the moment, I just follow my Rebecca Romero cycling plan. And outside of that, just a little bit of, cookbooks and vegan cookbooks, or the Velo Chef or things like that. So, Yeah, but not too much really. And then just the general listening to podcasts, social media, those sorts of things. But the big ones, I suppose, are the Training Peaks sort of that I follow in terms of the cycling, and just then the strength and conditioning, which has been really helpful.
Cool. Great stuff. What advice would you give to others?
I think for me, the last couple of years where I've just focused on myself and just enjoyed, and I think just enjoy the running. So, for example, I do a really long run on a Sunday with my mate. We do about 3 hours on a Sunday, which is a pretty long run, to be fair. And we just go and enjoy it, have a laugh, and just, I think, enjoy the process. As corny as that sounds, I think
it's not corny, is it? It's exactly right.
If you don't enjoy it, you won't race well. And I think since I've really started to enjoy the training, it makes you want to get up and get out. When you don't, some days you don't really enjoy it, but as much as you can enjoy it, get out to new places, train in different environments. I think it is that you've got to enjoy the process. If you're not enjoying the process, then I think it's just got to enjoy the process. And then I think you get the and I think just be the best version of yourself and just strive for better and not worry about what everyone else is doing. I spent too much of my running career worrying about who was on the start line and just enjoy what you're doing, turn up to the line the best you can do, and don't worry about anybody else, really.
Great advice that we all need to follow. Easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. And finally, what are your short and your long-term goals?
Short term, I've got the Europeans next week, which is really short term. So that's a really short term goal. I'd love to come back from there with a medal.
I think you're going to do it. No pressure, but I think you're going to do it.
So I'd love to come back. And then sort of mid to long term is I've done a couple of middle distance duathlons this year. I won my first British triathlon major at middle distance duathlon. So I want to do maybe a middle distance duathlon because my bike's improved so much. Yeah. It's actually nearly, if not stronger than my running at the moment. So, and I haven't lost anything on the run. So maybe a middle distance duathlon over the next few years. And I think with me finishing a good result last year, I'd just love either to get a European or a world title would be absolutely, but yeah, we'll see how that pans out. So first crack of that's next week. And over the next few years, see if I can I've got a couple of good national medals at the moment. Last year, I got a couple of silvers and a bronze this year. So getting an international medal is the short to long-term goal, really.
First of all, good luck with everything you've just said, and good luck with your future. But I love it how you're looking into the future and that you've got a long-term goal. It's not, you've got the race this weekend, but you're focused. It's a long-term thing, which I think this is what it is, isn't it? This is the lifestyle that we live, and
I think so.
It's great to come out and hear that from you.
I think as well with duathlon, there's technology, and I think bike positions and stuff like that. It's amazing how much what I've learned as well, since I'm performing better at 42 than I was at 35.
Yeah.
And over the last I was training pretty well last year, and I've already knocked from my TT riding. I was at 58 minutes 2 years ago. I'm now down to 53. My 10-mile TT's come down from 23 minutes to nearly 20-30 this year. So, and I'm getting older. So
it's going the right way, isn't it?
So it's, I suppose with duathlon, it's how long you can hold on to that form before everyone else sort of loses their form. But it's amazing what I think a change of diet, change of lifestyle, these sort of people talk about marginal gains, but I made quite a few marginal gains in lots of areas over the last couple of years, and it's had a huge impact. It's sort of 8 minute over a 2 hour race. I'm sort of 8 to 10 minutes quicker than I was when I was 35, and I wasn't unfit from any means. So it's amazing what you can do when you look around, and some of that stuff's not expensive stuff to do.
That's a great place to land it. Good luck next weekend. I'll be watching the results because there's quite a few of the athletes that I know are over there. I was supposed to be there, but not going now because of various niggles and things, and
Yeah,
just it hasn't worked out. So, but hope you have a blast and you enjoy it, and yeah, good luck with the race. So
yeah, look forward to hearing more of the podcasts and stuff. So yeah, and hopefully your niggles get better, and hopefully see you on the start line next year sometime or later this year.
Yeah, so thank you ever so much once again for coming on and sharing your story. It's been fantastic. Cheers, Simon. Lovely to meet you. All right, take care.
Bye.
Thanks once again to Simon for coming on and sharing his journey. Life's never plain sailing for any of us, is it? And I'm glad to see that he's got on top of his colitis issue, and it seems to be that his diet and his strength and conditioning sessions and his focusing on sleep and health and well-being standing him in good stead. And it's a pleasure for me to reveal that he actually got a bronze at Bilbao last weekend, which is what we were indicating and hoping that he was going to be able to achieve, that podium step. So thank you once again, and well done, Simon. Fantastic result. And it was great to hear his projects to keep his drive going. I thought that was that was a really good idea. Something that I might incorporate in my own training just to pep it up a bit. So I hope you enjoyed that one. And that's about it for this episode. Thank you ever so much again for taking the time out to listen. We are once again looking for age group multisport athletes to come on the pod and share their story. So if that's you or any age grouper that you know, tell them to get in touch. And you can get in touch by email, which is agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. Just drop us a line with a bit of a background story on yourself and we'll sort something out. Or you can DM us on Instagram at amp_1967. You can follow us on Twitter at Age Group Multisport Podcast. And we have our own YouTube channel, which is AmpGB, the podcast up there. But that is something in the plan that I will rectify. But all the others are on there. So if that's your platform of choice, you can go across to YouTube and give us a listen. And I would really appreciate it if you could, especially if you're on Apple Podcast or Spotify, just leave us a review, a message, and rate us, because that really does help us to lift our profile and get our name out there so other like-minded people can give us a listen and support. So until the next episode, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.